get used to the control. So thank you for that.
Hi everybody. It's great to see you this morning for the call. I attached a document to this call. Katie Hansen, I'm so glad you're here. Actually, I didn't have time this week, but I wanted to get in touch with you because so many people after the last call reached out and said, if you're going to plan a national coordinated media release, we want to be part of it. So many, dozens and dozens of organizations. It was so overwhelming that we decided just to continue the conversation here because things are rapidly changing and the situation in shelters is really dire in many places. So we're gonna talk about it as a group, but I didn't want to come empty-handed. And so I brought I just shared a document, which is not a draft of a news release, but really just a brain dump of the things that I think are most important to get out there. And I'm hoping we can take this information, we can take the data we're going to hear from Stephanie today, and we can really get what I want to walk away from this meeting with is everyone's thoughts about where we're at and the best pathway forward. I think we have some creative ideas around changing the message. And so that's what I want to kind of delve into today. We have, and I think some of the data Stephanie's going to share with us will point us to the messaging we need. So if you are new to the call and you haven't been with us before, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you are and where you're from. We are going to jump right into any of our national partners who are on the call today. And I want to start with Jerica from NACA. NACA just released a position statement that's actually really important, even though when you look at it, you may not know why at first. So I was hoping she could share a little bit about that, and then we'll turn it over to our other national partners. So Jerica, welcome.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, so NACA released a statement. We released it yesterday via email and social, and essentially it has come to attention that there is a likelihood that several courtroom animal advocate programs, CAP laws, will be introduced into multiple states this coming year. These laws have the potential to really negatively impact animal control agencies and officers. So we feel that the animal control officers have the expertise and the experience, and it should really be those experiences and expertise that is the driving force behind change. And we are asking policymakers to engage with animal control professionals to better understand the issues they face. There's a little bit more background on the laws themselves. Essentially, it's the court appointing an advocate for the animal, which we know that a lot of times that is the animal control officer's role itself. So there's a lot more that goes into it. I will post the link in the chat. I won't spend too much time on it, but if you have a chance to go read it, if you have questions, let us know. We're here to answer. And Kristen, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, Jerica. The reason the board felt this was important is really because there are so many needs. And I'm curious if you lead or are part of an animal control unit in any way, will you let us know in the chat or with the hand raise if you are in any way involved in animal control? Cool. So when we're talking about animal control with officers, what we're hearing are very consistent things from officers about the experiences that they're having and the challenges. And I'll just name two quick ones. One is that once animals are involved in the court system, they're held up for months to years. Sometimes they're held as private or as property and cannot be even handled. And officers can't get animals moved through the system, which causes all kinds of problems and humane issues. Number two is a disconnect within the system. So officers may not feel that prosecutors are really afforded adequate training or resources to prosecute animal cruelty and neglect cases. So there are real needs out there, and this law doesn't address any of those real emergent needs. And so we're asking any legislators and policymakers this year who are considering introducing cruelty and neglect statutes or bills to consult with animal control officers as well as prosecutors to know if those are really what are most needed because resources are so limited. So what we're going to be doing next as a NACA board is introducing statements and ideas for what we think is most important based on what officers are telling us. Okay, and we're going to move to our rest of our national organizations now. And I just want to say, if you are as excited as I am about the Maddie's grant giveaway for May, it is happening right after the national announcements. So we're going to wait to do that second so we get the maximum number of folks on the call. So let's have a couple more announcements from any national groups who are on the call.
Hi, Kristen. It's been a while since I've been on, so I just wanted to give another shout out from Best Friends for the Best Friends National Conference. The registrations are still available. It's July 7th through 9th in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. So please come check it out. Join us in person at the conference. It's going to be great. More than 100 speakers, many of whom are on this call. So would love to see you all there, and I will post more deets in the chat.
We're so excited. We're going to try to have a get together there too of folks from this call. So hope you all can join us. It's a great time of year to go there as well.
Hi, everybody. Stacy here with Community Cats Podcast. Just a reminder, we have a TNR Trapper certification workshop tomorrow from 2 to 4:30 p.m. in partnership with Neighborhood Cats. So if you are interested in getting your volunteers, your staff TNR certified, we have a test at the end. And you can get a certificate. And so that's happening tomorrow. We do that monthly. So it's an ongoing program that we do. And then the next weekend, June 10th through the 12th, is our online kitten conference. So it's going to be all about kittens the next weekend. You can find out all the details at thecommunitycatspodcast.com. And June is subscriber month. So if you aren't a subscriber, please become a subscriber of the podcast. Thank you.
This is Jerica. I'm going to jump back in real quick from NACA. This week, NACA was awarded a generous grant from the ASPCA to help fund a scholarship program, which will allow us to put nearly 100 animal control officers through our national certification certificate program. We're very excited about this. So if you know anybody who may be interested, please share the link to apply. We'll be awarding scholarships on an ongoing basis. So thank you so much. Have a good week.
Hey, this is Jessica Arnold from Pet Finder. Apologies for not being camera ready today, but I just wanted to mention really quickly that we are having a webinar next Thursday, and I can put the link in the chat. That's going to be around FAQs for site uses and some myth busting and making strong profiles to move hard to place pets more quickly. The other point that I just wanted to make is that I've been tracking a 7-day average of total number of pets posted on site. And usually when things start hitting crisis mode, it's when we have around 250,000 pets posted on any day as a 7-day average. And we are now at 247,000 pets. So we are right there at the crisis line. So we know, we can see in real time that the pressure is mounting out there, and hope that we can help you all move some pets into homes.
Jessica, maybe you can come back. I have a feeling we're going to probably continue this conversation next week as well. Maybe you can come back and share even more data with us. That's really interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think that the tipping point in a not good way has been hit. So we'd be interested to hear more about that.
I would love to do that. We are currently looking at what we can learn from both ends, both sides of our database, shelter rescue and pet seeker. So we have lots of data that we're going to be releasing in the coming year, and I'd love to come back and talk.
Okay, well, I'll give just a really quick update from American Pets Live. So, you know, sort of HOS is one side of the work we do, and American Pets Live is the other. And That's really focused on outcomes and care in shelters. We have been getting a high number of requests for ringworm, distemper, parvo, and other contagious disease in shelters. And all of that is on the American Pets Live website. There are just easy to use protocols. So just wanted to remind everybody about those. They're there, they're proven, and they are being used widely, but they're there for you when you are facing different kinds of issues, emergent issues in your shelters. Okay, we're going to move now to Kelly Clardy from Maddie's Fund and the Maddie's Fund team for our May grant giveaway. And we're so excited about this. I hope our winners are here today.
Oh, I hope so too, Kristen. It's always so exciting when that happens. All right. Hey, everyone. I am Kelly Clardy. I am the grants manager at Maddie's Fund. And I get, like, part of my job is this awesome thing where I get to announce grant winners. And it's totally awesome. So as a reminder, we give away $5,000 every month to those who participate in this call. So whether you are watching live, like the 226 of you are right now, or if you are watching on demand, if you are hearing my voice right now, you are eligible to enter our giveaway. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. We have a new link because it's a new month. So be sure to enter to win. If you do not enter, you cannot win. So be sure to enter. And with that, I will, let me close that, share my screen, and we will do the presentation of the results of our drawing. So sometimes, y'all know, we give away 5 $1,000 grants. Sometimes we give away 2 $2,500 grants, and we haven't done it yet, but there is an opportunity for 1 $5,000 grant. So we will see what we've got today. All right, can everybody see this?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so this is the May 2022 prize winners. And we have one winner of $5,000. And it is Aaron Nichols of Lancaster SPCA of South Carolina, in Lancaster, South Carolina. Oh my goodness, Karen, we will be in touch with you. I'm going to stop sharing. Are you on the call, Karen? Or anybody from Lancaster SPCA? No. All right. Well, Karen, we will reach out to you. And
Karen said
get
Cabot
your
Animal
money.
Support Services could accept it for her.
I'll talk to Karen about that, Brandy. All right. Y'all have a great day. Happy June. Happy Friday. Back to you, Kristen.
Okay, thanks everybody. So if you are here today, you know we're going to be talking about the current situation that we're in, and thank goodness we have Stephanie Filer, who's here from Shelter Animals Count. Before we hear from Stephanie, I just want to say that I think what will end up happening with the calls for the next probably 3 weeks is a focus on this. It is such a crisis, so much of the country. So I think we're going to focus on that, and we really want to hear from people, experts, and that doesn't have to be experts in animal welfare. It can be people who are experts in nationally coordinated media pushes, getting the public to hear one consistent message, people that can bring something to the table right now in this moment, because there are so many lives on the line. Today, we're going to be kind of getting a little bit better picture of the recent data from Stephanie. But before we do that, we have a couple of poll questions for you that we wanted to put out because we want to get a sense of how you on this call are doing. And this poll data helps us know where we need to go. So the questions are specific, and remember, they are anonymous. So your responses aren't recorded. They're not tracked to any individual. We just get that aggregate number. So we're going to go ahead and launch those first, and then we will turn it over to Stephanie. The first question is, what is the most significant issue facing your organization today? And the options are too many animals coming in, fewer or slower adoption and rescue placement, staffing issues, shelter disease, or other. And yes, we know many of you would love to say all, but we really want to know what the most significant issue you feel is. So that is the question, and we're giving people just another minute to answer it. These stay open a bit because we can see how responses are coming in. So when the responses slow down is when we close that poll. Okay. And can you see those poll results? Allison, are those up? Or we just go to the next poll?
These are the results.
Okay, so it's looking like fewer or slower adoption and rescue placements, 34%. So animals are kind of stuck in your system. Staffing issues, 35%. So that's actually the number one issue. And then right behind that is too many animals coming in. We can go to that next one. Are you at or above capacity for dogs currently at this moment? So are you at or above? And we're curious about this because we're wondering if you are full, and if we need to, or if some of you actually do have space, if we could be working more regionally to distribute dogs. Okay. And that. So it looks like 71% are saying yes, and 29% are saying no. Next. Are you at or above capacity for cats? So we're expecting you to say that you are not at or above capacity for cats, most of you. So it'll be interesting to see, because I think this situation is shifting quickly, so we could be wrong. Okay, so we'll stop there. So it looks like about 39% are saying yes, and 61% are saying no. We'll probably repeat these polls next week because we may see some changes in them. I think we have one more, maybe two. Are you currently euthanizing for space in your shelter? We have heard a lot of folks are at risk of euthanizing for space, but we're not sure if that moment has actually hit. So we're curious if you are euthanizing for space. Okay, so it's looking like 89% are saying no and 11% are saying yes. And then do we have one more, Allison?
Yes.
Are you currently open to the public? And when we ask this question, we mean open to the public as you were pre-pandemic, not open to the public as in we have appointments. So are you open to the public right now? We're hearing a number of shelters are not open to the public, that they're still doing appointment-based, that people can't just walk in or walk in freely as they used to. So we're curious about the percentage on this because we're not sure how big of an issue it actually is. Okay, so it's looking like 85% say yes and about 15% say no. We will probably relaunch these next week to see if things are changing a bit. Okay, well, now we're going to turn it over to Stephanie Filer. Stephanie's been with Shelter Animals Count for under a year, but has made so much impact already, and has so much information to share, and it's the best aggregated data set that we have to tell us what's happening in shelters. So she's going to run through some slides, and then we're going to focus the entire rest of the time on talking about how we approach this and what your all suggestions are. So be thinking about what is the story that is going to get the public's attention right now, and what is the ask that we want to make. So we've made the adopt or foster please ask many times. We probably need to do something a little bit different, even if it's adopt an animal that's stuck in the system, right? Something a little different. So as she's presenting, think about how we might use this data to tell the story to the public. So Stephanie, over to you.
All right, thanks, Kristen. Good morning. I'm excited to be here and share some of this data with you all today. Can you see my screen? No, I need to do something different. Hold on. Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so I just want to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about today, and also, since I didn't chime in on some of our national updates, give you some updates on SAC. As many of you know, Shelter Animals Count was founded in 2012, and we have been the most trusted animal sheltering data source for the past 10 years. So SAC is neutral, we're independent, and we're governed by a board of directors, including national animal welfare organizations and shelter leaders. So even if you're familiar with SAC or think you know SAC, I can assure you, like Kristen said earlier, a lot has changed in the past few months. So I really encourage you to rediscover Shelter Animals Count and re-engage if maybe you've been away for a little bit. So we do have a really small staff team, but we're supported by an extremely talented board of directors, awesome data committee, and some really generous financial supporters as well. So if you're on the call and you're part of any of these groups, I want to invite you to please add your org and your role with SAC in the chat so everyone can see who's been helping beyond our team. And I also want to acknowledge our data director, Samantha Hill, who did all of the analysis that I'm going to present today, and our marketing director, Ashley Peck, who really helped with some creative visualizations so we can help make this data easier to digest. It's a lot of complicated data, but it's really important. So we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but also take time to walk through what it all means. So also in the past few months, we've done a massive redesign of our website, including the release of some new interactive dashboards for both our intake and outcome database and our new community services database. And this year, we also have released reports on 3-year historical trends. Our Q1 report dives deeper into some of the data that we're going to be covering today. And you can check all of that out on our website. And then next month, once we get through the end of June, we'll be releasing our report covering data for the first half of the year compared to last year, first half. But everything we're going to share today is hot off the press. It's going to be primarily January through April of this year compared to January through April of last year. And we'll look at how things have changed, especially have changed since we released our Q1 report. April kind of threw everything back up in the air. So before we dive into the data, I want to explain what we're going to be looking at. So we calculated in most of these slides what's called outcomes as a percentage of intake. And so what that looks like is 100% is the goal. At least 100%, I should say, is the goal. That's really equilibrium or population stability. So what that means is the number of animals entering the shelter in the set time frame are leaving at the exact same rate, which means the population change during that time is 0. So on the bottom left, you'll see anything more than 100% means outcomes are actually outpacing intakes, so the population in care decreases. Which means on the right, the reverse is true. Anything less than 100% means animals are leaving at a slower rate than they're entering, so the population increases. So throughout this presentation, we're going to look at primarily cats and dogs, January through April, like I mentioned, except where otherwise noted in a few cases. And just a little background too, about 63% of the organizations that we have data that we'll be reporting on today are animal services or have an animal services contract, whether shelter or rescue or just pure animal services. 29% are shelters without a contract, and 8% are rescues without a contract. And it's really important to note, to ensure we're comparing apples to apples, we're only looking at organizations who reported data in all 4 months of both years so that we can compare accurate trends versus looking at any nuance that comes from different agencies reporting over the time. And if you want to know if your organization was represented in the data we're going to be sharing today, you can log into your SAC dashboard and you can see if your data is complete for those 8 months. And if you don't have incomplete data, it's not too late. You can still enter it because we're going to be continuing to do analysis year over year to see how things have changed. So you can enter that in arrears at any point. Okay, and then I also included a link into the chat of making data entry even easier, where you're going to be able to create an API with your shelter software company to have your data fed automatically when you opt in from your shelter software to SAC, which will eliminate having to enter in both places. So we're really excited about that. You can go to our website under the news section to get the links to opt in to learn more about the timeline for your software. Okay, so first slide. Here we're looking at that 100% equilibrium being that goal. Looking at the past 4 months over 2021 compared to 2022. And this is looking at dogs and cats combined. So this shows that so far, 2022 is following that downward trend as last year. In January, we had more cats and dogs leaving than entering. And in February, we were close to equilibrium in both years. But the past 2 months, not only have we decreased past equilibrium, but we've lost any of the gains that we had made up in January and February. So also, we had in our Q1 report shown that things were looking on the right trend, and they were, and then April kind of threw that in the face. As you can see that we're down in the 80s now versus in January, we're in well over 100. So we've started to see a slight improvement year over year. 2022, you can see the past 3 months, we're actually doing better than we were in 2021, but not at a rate high enough to actually reach equilibrium. So the net animals that are entering the shelter are coming in at a higher rate than they're leaving, and that continues to snowball month over month, as you'll see. So when you add all of that together, this is where we finished 2021 for January through April, 94.4%. And so far this year, we're at 96.1%. So notably an improvement over last year, but that improvement kind of doesn't matter because we're not at or above 100%. And so like I said, that continues to snowball month over month. So that's where that feeling of full continues to only get worse. So in addition to looking at just the percentages, here we're looking at the animals themselves. So the question I keep getting is, are intakes going up? And the answer is yes, but it's really only slightly, as you'll see here. The dark on the left indicates the gross intakes and the light bar indicates the gross outcomes, with 2021 being on the left and 2022 being on the right. And it really just illustrates that while intakes are going up, they're still not at pre-pandemic rates. And the real issue is that sustained imbalance of more animals coming in than leaving. And then add to it the fact that intakes are going up, it's only making that more challenging. So looking at just cats, we've made improvements over the last year again. And we were above equilibrium in Q1. So when we shared our Q1 report, it was looking great for cats. We were at 104% when we were looking at just Q1 for cats. So 4% more cats were leaving than were entering the shelter, which was awesome. And when I say shelter interchangeably with the organization types I mentioned at the beginning. But unfortunately, we lost those gains in April alone. All of the progress we made in Q1 went out the window in April. And so now that leaves us with January through April looking at a total of 94.3% for cats. So still way below equilibrium, which means more animals are coming in than going out. You're going to hear me say that a lot today, unfortunately. So we're at about 6% higher population now in our shelters than we were just at the beginning of the year, just for cats. And we can assume a big part of April's decrease was kitten season, but that means we're just at the start of kitten season. So we can expect that to continue to be a challenge in the coming months. So now looking at dogs, it's interesting that the reverse line is true, which is encouraging. So we did see dogs start to have a slow start in January, but start to outpace where we were not only last year, but start to now finally be above equilibrium in April. However, because we had 3 months in Q1 of being below that, which we had shared in our Q1 report, that cats were actually doing a lot better than dogs. Now we have still only a total January through April of just under 98%. April was our best month by far. You can see that trend line is going up starting in January versus with cats, it's going down. So we hope to have that continue to be the trend, but remember, it doesn't matter even if we're only at 100 because we're still carrying that balance from really the past 18 months. And we're still not at equilibrium, but we need to be way above equilibrium. So diving deeper into the dog numbers, since dog supply and demand is a hot topic, we also looked at the percentages of equilibrium for dogs by region. So here's how the regions are broken out by the US Census. If you want to find your state and look at the legend and see what your census region is named, remember that for the next slide. I'll have the color map on the other one, but we're going to have it by the labels. So remember your region name. And here we are looking at this data by region. So you'll see 2021 on the graph is on the left, and it's on the top in the chart. And then 2022 is on the right and on the bottom. And remember, this is only looking at dogs. And I should point out, this is also only Q1. This does not include April. But it's interesting to note that in Q1, the only region who had more dogs leaving than entering was the Pacific region, which is that orange section on the left, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska. And they were really only above equilibrium at 0.9%. So in contrast, the region who struggled to move dogs the most at the rate of intake was actually the region right next door in the gray section, which is Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, et cetera. However, even if the Pacific region in the orange were to transfer dogs from the mountain region to get them up to equilibrium in the orange region, it's still a 6% gap. So it's not just a simple transfer solution. And you'll hear throughout this that it's really not any one solution, which Kristen mentioned. It's not adopting our way out. It's not only reducing intakes. It's all of these solutions together. But this really just illustrates a length of stay and balance. So the other thing that's important to note when we're looking at the regional differences is there are some orgs in some regions that don't have capacity concerns. So they're actually able to handle higher length of stay and to handle that imbalance because they have the space and they have the resources. And in some areas where supply is low, I've actually heard from some of these orgs that as their intake continues to decrease, their length of stay is increasing, and that's expected and anticipated. And so they probably will never be at 100%. And in some of these situations, they're also transferring in animals that are harder to place from shelters who don't have those resources. And so it's really a redistribution and not necessarily doesn't tell us that they're necessarily at challenging population levels. Could be intentional. Okay, so overall, we've been saying for the past several months and beyond that the gap that exists between the number of animals coming in and the number of animals going out and the rate of which those occur is not sustainable. And that pressure for many shelters and rescues continues to build, as we saw in the comments, we saw in the polls today. And it continues to tip those scales even further because not only are we stopping the leak, we're also not able to rebuild it in a way that deals with everything we've been dealing with for the past 18 months. So again, these were the percentages that we ended now January through April of last year compared to this year. So I want to talk about what that looks like to carry over that surplus of animals. So these are the same numbers in a new slide. But in 2021, we ended that 4-month period with outcomes trailing intakes by 5.6%. And then this year so far, we're currently having outcomes trail intakes by 3.9%. So you add that together, and to reach equilibrium, assuming May of last year through December of last year we're at equilibrium, which they weren't, then we need to be at least 105.6%, which is a 95 or 9.5% gap of where we're currently at, to just stop it getting worse. And that's without looking at May through December to know where that actual number is. It's likely much higher than that. So as we see, we are trending in the right direction year over year, but not at a rate fast enough to really solve this problem. So how do we flip the scale? I should also mention too that it's not just the 9.5% gap in numbers. To add to that is a lot of organizations, as we know, are seeing a reduction in capacity through this time, staffing challenges, fewer volunteers, fewer foster homes, funding issues. And so that adds to what normally would have been a manageable population in a lot of cases. So how do we flip the scale? No surprise for a lot of people here. We need all of these things: responsible reduction of intakes, an increase of adoption, an increase of transfers, and an increase in return to owner. And if we don't, we also know that we risk overcrowding, increased euthanasia, and the inability to help our communities to the level that they need. So we looked at the euthanasia rate, and this slide you'll notice are a little different because we literally did this morning. Shout out to Samantha. And this is for cats and dogs combined. And this shows the rate of euthanasia, again, compared to the number of animals coming in as intake. And I want to point out that it's not as bad as it looks graphically here, because if you look at that vertical axis, the differentiation is 0.2%. So we have to have it that small because it is such a small change. But it is going up in 2022 when you look at dogs and cats combined compared to where we were in 2021. We're about a difference of 0.6% overall. So we went from 5.6% to 6.2% this year of cats and dogs being euthanized as a percentage of intake. So when we break that down by species, dogs on the left, cats on the right. Note the vertical axis is now measuring by full percentage points because we're talking about bigger numbers. As you'll see, the 2021 cats outpaced the dogs by about 2 percentage points. And if you look on that totals box, but in 2022, dogs have actually climbed to meet cats at where we're at year to date. And in some cases, you'll see in March and in April of this year, they actually exceeded cats. So essentially, cats have been trending down while dogs have been trending up. So some of the data that we shared today is national data that is important to understand the full scope of what we're facing as an industry, but you can also take this data and calculate it for your own organizations. So in order to calculate the rate of outcomes as a percentage of intakes, you would take your outcomes divided by intakes and then divide that by total intakes. So it also, you can get down, if you have the ability within your organization, you can get even more insights by removing non-adoption eligible pets when they enter, either because they're too young or they're not ready for adoption. And so you can see how that rate might be a little different. But also the simpler way is just to take your population changes by looking at your end count and your beginning count. And so you can do this obviously daily, weekly, monthly. You likely already are. But these are all great things to communicate to your community to really leverage their support. Both the total number in care and how that's changed from a period of time, and the rate of animals coming in being more than animals going out, if that applies for your organization.
And Stephanie, I just want to stop you. We have about 5 more minutes.
Yep, I'm good. That's it. That's all I have. If we have time for questions, otherwise I can kick it over.
We do. We have time for a couple of questions if you want to jump in. Again, we're not looking for feedback or critique of this document. We really just wanted to get data to you all. If you want to reach out to Stephanie, she'll give her email address. But for the purpose of today, we know that, data is always an incomplete story, but for the purpose of today, we're really just trying to get together as a group to say, what is the story we need to tell the nation? That's really the big question. So we have time for just a couple of questions if anyone wants to jump in, and no comments, just questions at this point.
Hi, this is Sue with Pack for Animals. I just have a quick question. With the intake and euthanasia, do you track the numbers of the pets that are euthanized, whether it's because of age, illness, or temperament?
Are we tracking the reason for euthanasia? Is
Yeah.
that what you're asking? So right now, the data that Shelter Animals Count collects is outcome type and not necessarily the region. However, we are working for or with organizations who are interested to start to collect what we call animal level data. And that would allow us to look at intake reasons, surrender reasons, dive down into that more subtype level. And it would also do the same for euthanasia and other outcomes. So that's in the future for organizations that opt in. We would only ever share that at a high level aggregate because it's in SAC's mission to not have data be weaponized. But have it to actually inform and be helpful in where organizations need help as a whole or individually. So that's definitely something that SAC can't currently do now, but is in the future. But within organizations as a whole and federations, it's something that would be really good for you to look at individually.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so we're sort of at a precipice. And I think that what Steve Zeidman told us 3 or 4 months ago was that we didn't have an increase in euthanasia, but we had early indicators that that metric was going to follow. And I think that what Stephanie's data is showing us is that dogs are most at risk now. It will soon be followed by cats, but right now in this moment, probably dogs are, and I know that we're all seeing, Texas is already a bloodbath this summer. It's just really, it's already really heartbreaking. We also know that the staffing issues, it isn't just that orgs are short staffed, it's that the staffing shelters don't have the institutional knowledge. And how many of you know, I think I had 6 people that I know personally resign last week, all from different orgs, all for different reasons. People are just not staying in the field right now. So we've got that problem, which I think compounds everything, but we've got to figure out how to get to, if you think about the story, I keep referencing the story about the baby formula shortage because it's a critical problem and there's a really coordinated message around it. There's also, I think whoever did the messaging around the veterinary shortage did an excellent job, a clear coordinated message. Now, in both those cases, it's a little different because there isn't necessarily a clear ask I could tell you with either one of those, right? It's not like the public can go out and fix it tomorrow. With ours, there is. And so we're looking at a headline and something that hones in on what's most important, and something potentially that's going to get attention. One suggestion has been euthanasia of shelter dogs set to explode as shelters remain at capacity on a national level. Something really alerting the public that we're about to see a large increase in euthanasia. And I'm curious your thoughts. I know this is hard, and I know not everyone's in this situation, but we really have a lot of animals' lives on the line here. And if we get a coordinated message with a clear ask, we may have a chance of saving half or more of them. And so I think we actually have a chance to change things here, but we've got to get this right. So I want to turn it over. We have about 14 minutes, and I want to ask if folks have ideas around this, if you can just try to keep your comments brief, because again, we want to hear from as many people as possible. And that document that I sent out, you can comment on that now or after the meeting, just add in comments to it. But I guess I want to hear from a few folks. And I think, Brent, are you still here?
I am still here.
I guess, can we kick it off with you? Because you know quite a lot about this and are coming from a place of looking at data yourself. If we're looking at sort of a coordinated message, do you have thoughts on that? And then we're just going to open it up to others after Brent shares.
Yeah, I mean, so I know that Best Friends tried to do something around this, basically using some of Steve Zeidman's data, trying to articulate the capacity issue that was at shelters, and we were able to estimate based on their population increases in their data and what that represented across of what percent of all animals their data represented across our data set, that there were roughly 100,000 more animals on site in January of this year than there were in January of 2021. Now, part of that was January of 2021, we were down fairly low in terms of numbers because people were still operating at kind of COVID capacity, 50, 70% capacity type numbers. And that was a really good message for it. I think what is a little bit confusing, and this is the first time I've seen Stephanie's data, is seeing the increase in the dog adoptions and that number. Like, I'm not too concerned about the cats. We always see that the capacity in April of the cats always, like with kitten season, we start to see the early part of kitten season, like that's always low on the flow through. But that's the first thing I've seen that would indicate that dogs are moving out, because that's not what we've been seeing in any of our data. And it's not anything that I've been seeing from any of our shelter partners. It's like, it's just dogs are moving slowly. And so we've done a little bit of research that I'm hoping that we'll be able to have ready toward the end of this month on why people may be delaying adoptions, particularly dog adoptions, which I think is super interesting. I can't share it today, but it's an issue, and I agree with you that it's a really big issue with dogs. Like, the number of shelters out there that are at 50 to 100% above capacity for dogs is a big problem. And I think it's just that people have delayed their dog adoptions for a variety of reasons, most of them not necessarily as directly COVID related as you would think.
Great. Okay, cool. So I'm going to turn it over to anyone else that has ideas about what we might do. And I do hear some of the comments are a little bit on different subjects. We're really going to stick to this subject here only of what a national coordinated message would look like. So if anybody has ideas about, is it time to say euthanasia is coming? Is it time to say, like Dr. Levy pointed out, shelters are overfull and this is the risk?
Hi. I think we have to just, with the messaging, we just have to be careful that we're speaking to outside the industry. And so it needs to be simple as possible. Like, during the beginning of the COVID pandemic, the message was you should foster. And that totally worked, because we had everybody from Petco to PetSmart to ASPCA to Best Friends. Everyone was saying it, fostering. And it's such a simple message. If we get too wrapped up in the weeds of, you know, we're over capacity for humane housing based on capacity to care, we have to just be careful and make it simple as possible and not get too in the weeds of what this industry is. And, you know, also, I know there's the thought about, well, we shouldn't say euthanasia, we should say killing. But again, we're talking to the general public here. We have to make it palatable for other people to use that term. euthanasia, sorry.
Katie, I mean, you guys have been so successful in New York and in really getting national media attention. Like, I do wonder about the simplicity, because I do think it has to be like 4 words. Like, that's all we can say. If we get more complicated than that, we're going to lose it. And what do you think, given what you just said, what do you think those keywords are?
Euthanasia is coming. I mean, for the first time in a decade, you know,
So, you know, we're in a situation where people are actually advocating for euthanasia right now. So I'm not sure that's exactly the message I want. I think that even though these are sort of industry speak, there may be a way that we can put this. What I've asked my staff to think about is, what will we ask the public to do if there was no shelter? Because right now there is no shelter. The shelter is broken between the staffing issues and capacity issues and influx and stuff like that. We need a very different response from the public. And the public expects the shelter to take care of it. And the shelter can't take care of it with the kind of issues that we're experiencing right now, which are really unprecedented. So, you know, what if there were no shelter? Then what will we ask people to do? We'd ask them to foster. We'd ask them to try and get the pet home. All those kinds of things. But just like everything else, I mean, I spent 45 minutes trying to get my Impossible Whopper, and I was the second person in line yesterday. There's a big difference between an Impossible Whopper and, you know, 450 large dogs that I can't place, but it's sort of the same thing.
I totally agree, Rebecca. The problem I think we'll face, at least maybe as a municipal shelter, is that people will say, well, that's what our taxes go to. It's for you to solve that problem. So.
And I want to be really clear that I have been talking this over with a number of people, and some that have been in this work a very long time, Rebecca among them, Katie among them. And Denise Deisler asked me to say, she sent some notes, she couldn't be here today, and she said, look, we have been saying we need help adopt or foster today for too long. We have been saying the same message. People are tone deaf. We've got to say something more definitive. We've got to say something clearer. And that's why when we think about that message, I see a lot of great ideas in the chat, but they are the same fundamental message of shelters are really full. They need your help. Go adopt today. It's got to be something different than that. And then we can add all the context into the body. That document I sent is all the context. I mean, we need to add to it, but that can all be there. But that headline, we in this room have to really come up with something that's going to get people's attention.
I mean, can I just add, I think part of the reason the fostering message was so persuasive during COVID was because people were feeling so scared, and this gave them something to hang on to that was, you know, it wasn't just about animals. It was partly about animals, but not just about them. Sort of in the same way that people have become very focused on pets in Ukraine, or were in the beginning, because there was this overwhelming crisis, and this gave people something to hold on to, some amount of hope, some way to help. And so I think, you know, if we can think about tying the messaging to something bigger than just sheltering and bigger than just pets, but something that's affecting all people too, that could really help make the message stronger.
I mean, I think Rebecca's point is that the system's not working. Like, and that isn't true. That is true of local government in general. I think local government isn't surviving this moment very well for a lot of reasons, but not all of local government has 600, 1,000 little, you know, animals inside. And so it's a different immediacy of the stakes of breakdown when it comes to animal shelters. And somehow we've got to explain that to the public, that yeah, we are subject to all the same impacts of COVID, but the consequence of that is immediate, and it's immediate euthanasia of healthy savable, friendly pets. This isn't business as usual for us. And I wrote that whole document, and it's much too long. And the core message, I do think is that euthanasia is imminent, in a way it hasn't been. I do think that has to be in there for the public to act. I don't know that they're going to act with a message of like, poor people are losing their homes and their pets. I just don't know if that's going to convince them, even though it should. But we're looking at, the news cycle, and the news cycle is brutal.
So I just want to add in some of the human messaging about the staff, because I feel like in addition to the crisis, the line through every organization right now is that staff are really suffering. And I feel like part of the pandemic response in the beginning was that people were really worried about shelter staff being overwhelmed. And maybe that got used in the beginning. It's not going to be as effective again. But I just think that something about help your neighbor, which includes the person working in your local shelter. I mean, the public has always said, I can never do what you do. Well, neither can we anymore. And we're all burning out. And so here are ways that you can support us.
I feel like I'm saying something that Rebecca made a point to, is that when I share this message with the community, they're like, go ahead, euthanize. I don't know if we've reached everybody that feel like euthanasia is the wrong choice. And that we need to talk with that broader swath of people who think that is what we do, and that it should be what we do. It's a hard message to hear.
We could target a specific group. We did think a lot about the forgotten pets of the pandemic and focusing on animals that have longer lengths of stay. As some have pointed out, a lot of those pets are more challenging, even if they weren't when they came in, because they've been sitting in shelters now for 6 months to a year and a half. But we could focus on a more specific target group of pets. But I'm wondering, I guess in this last couple of minutes, do we need a national adoption event that's different than anything we've done? I think yes. I think we need to do a national adoption event that's different than anything we've done that's around this messaging, and get some resources behind it. And two, I think we need to act relatively quickly to give the public solutions. And adoption isn't really realistic for everyone right now. And so what are the other ways people can help? And I do think the messaging around helping your neighbor get a lost pet home. We know 65% of dogs are coming in as lost and stray. I think that could be a core message of all of this. And I really like the fostering messaging, but I've heard from a lot of you that you don't need fosters, you need adopters. And I don't know if that's true, or if we should keep the focus on fostering. So does anybody want to weigh on that really quick in these last couple of minutes?
I think we need fosters. I think it's easier to find fosters than adopters, because fosters turn into adopters, at least sometimes. I think the push should be, not Mr. Right now. That's what we need to really focus on. You don't have to, date your dog, right? Let's do something like that. You don't have to make this lifetime commitment. You can just hang out for a couple days, couple weeks, see how it goes. That has really helped us get some of our pets, placed in more difficult situations, but that's not people go, what? It's not, we need everybody saying that.
I don't think that we should approach this as animals are going to die. Everybody, this euthanasia shelters are, I think nationally that's a mistake, because that's not happening nationally. Even on this questionnaire at the beginning, everybody said they're not, or a majority said they're not euthanizing for space. So I think that that's fear mongering, and there's so much negativity out there with all different kinds of issues in our world right now, that people are going to turn it off and turn a deaf ear. And instead, I'd much rather see us talk about what I think it was Lindsay or somebody who was saying earlier of, focusing on the low staff, high volume of animals coming in, and we need you. We need the community. So it's all of it. It's, you can say adopters, but if people aren't ready to adopt, then foster. And if you can't foster, if you can donate, all of these things are going to help us to save lives. And I think the message needs to be positive and empowering and not just single-minded and not negative.
Awesome, Jen, thank you. This feedback's all really great. I can't believe this has been the fastest hour ever. So what I'm going to do this week is take all this feedback, everything from the chat, the polls, circle back with Stephanie and some of the folks on this call who I think have experience in this area. We need communications resources. We need a national communications firm that gets placements in national media. If anybody has resources to direct towards that, and maybe it's just directing everybody to a national adoption event. It seems like there's a lot of support for that idea. And I'll also touch base with our national partners who help make this stuff happen. I get the sense that something proactive and positive as the ask is what you all are saying, regardless of, you know, how, if we tell people it's bad, if we tell them they can help, but having a way for them to help right now in a coordinated way is the main takeaway I'm getting from this call. So if I'm right, can you just say yes or thumbs up or something? If the let's do something and do it together now is the way we want to go. Okay. Cool. So if I didn't reach out to you after the last meeting, I'm sorry. It has been a crazy couple of weeks, but if you do have something to add to this, or you do have an idea about where we can find comms resources or other things we need, please let me know. And otherwise, I'm going to try to bring a draft release next week, probably 2 or 3 versions. And I think we should continue this and knock this thing out before we move on to anything else. So we will see you back here next week. There are going to be some changes coming to the calls. Mostly that these calls are going to be getting bigger. That's the teaser. So we'll tell you the whole story about that next week. But we're excited to see you back here next week. And in the meantime, please reach out to any of us on the HOS team if you need anything in the meantime. Have a good week.